A huge, strange-shaped object appeared in the space ahead of Raziel. A beam of light emanated from its center, and sharp, thorn-like points protruded from the lens-like rings, proof that it wasn't just an oddly shaped asteroid. However, it was forming a transparent force field, which trapped and stabilized floating rocks and particles around it. Interstellar gases colliding with interstellar winds emitted a dull light reminiscent of an aurora. This is the Moon Gate, and you have been chosen by it, declared Veissrugr, standing halfway between Raziel and the gate, with the first moon and the shining blue planet of Cray beyond him. Seeing the lunar gatekeeper's composed figure, Raziel suddenly realized, as if only for the first time, that he was floating unimpeded in space. That will be the case for all who take on the trials. Our power comes from an entity called the Moon. Therefore, only those chosen by the Moon Gate can approach, let alone see it. As if in response to his words, the Moon Gate quickly flickered, disappearing, then reappearing. Raziel's keen observational skills and recognition abilities, honed as a doctor, were not distracted by the size of the structure or the rippling waves, and he realized that the silhouette itself was the same that was worn by the gatekeepers and their Moonkeeper followers gathered before him. Do you and your party belong to the moon, just as we belong to the planet Cray? Yes. And you said I was chosen. That's right. Is that why I can breathe even in a vacuum? Yes. It's all for the trials. Exactly. Raziel's question was sharp, but Veissrugr's answer was leisurely. Then, why are you testing me? Why me? What does it mean to you? You're a doctor. So logical. That question is natural. But, in fact, it is also one I pose to you. Messenger of Savior, fated one of miracles, and the king of the fates. Raziel did not resist the dictates of the premonition that suddenly welled up inside of him, and he reached for the sword at his waist. Welcome to the stage of my trial. Veissrugr, the Moonkeeper, spread his arms, and the air was filled with the soundless flapping of wings. It seemed the curtain of the trial was about to be drawn. Several minutes earlier, on the assault carrier Lubutzel, CEO's office. Sup, Podium? How you holding up? Glad you're finally used to it. Veissrugr tapped his earphone and answered cheerfully, almost in the same time the call rang. He raised an eyebrow and signaled. Blitz Parfait shrugged and swiped her tablet, saying, "The remote meeting is over, I guess." Numerous shouts rang out from the other end where they had been cut off, awaiting the CEO's decision. Oh, it's okay. You're always welcome to call. But what's wrong? Huh? Raziel's missing? Veissrugr pointed, and Parfait opened the monitor. Ah, he's gone? 5 minutes ago. They kindly forced our company's latest security system to shut down. This guy. To the Space Force and Basati of the Keter Defense Ministry. While the AI analyzed the blurry image of the intruder on the monitor, Blitz CEO muted the phone for a moment, gave instructions to his secretary, and then left. Yes, I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm worried. I've even reported it. The man continued, his feet propped up on a desk in an unruly manner. But most importantly, Odium, are the eggs safe? Yes, that's good. I hope you'll keep them safe just like you did Liael's coffin. They're our company's most precious treasures. They're very important. A shout that sounded like anger was audible even to Perfet. Don't you get angry and start calling us a company at a time like this. I wish you'd call us your affiliate, or at least guardian of some kind, Veissrugr said as he identified the two objects rapidly escaping from the vast array of aircraft displayed on a screen and ordered them to track them. Despite his grin, this man was the CEO of Brant Gates' leading industrial company and a bundle of curiosity who would be called an aircraft carrier enthusiast, to put it lightly. He could easily make an improved radar. Slowing down near the moon increased to 3. Can we monitor it with our satellites at this rate? I'm talking about this. Odium, you don't need to worry. Veissrugr suddenly pulled his foot back and stood up, showing off his well-trained athletic ability as he jumped out from his desk. I'll keep this line connected like this. After this, I'll mute it for a while, but let me know the moment anything happens. I'll be sure to let you know when we know more. It'll be fine, so I can leave it to you, the egg and Liael, completely in your care. To Perfet's surprise, the CEO's tone, even towards Liael, who had only recently appeared on this planet, was truly filled with the consideration of a guardian. Hey, by the way, Angel of Gear Chronicle, I'd like to hear your opinion, Veissrugr asked with a serious face as he walked towards the operations command room. Do you know any rabbit-like creatures that can travel through the vacuum of space at over 0.43% the speed of light accompanied by an angel? That's something only you, and now maybe Reziel, would know. Even earlier in the story, in space, the crater-riddled surface of the moon loomed before them, and behind it, the blue planet of Cray shone like a half-moon. The journey to the moon would have been impressive if it weren't under the circumstances. They had been told it would take roughly 5 minutes by the moon's messenger Veissrugr to the first moon. Cray had a second moon, the Brant moon, but it felt much shorter to Reziel. She's Fafsneel, servant of the moon, and he's Ramsden, loyal servant of the moon. The rabbit-like Veissrugr pointed to 2 who had joined them, trailing a shiny trail. The female, Fafsneel, wore a confident smile as if showing off the fully loaded armament behind her, while the male, Ramsden, carrying a key-shaped staff, stared blankly at Reziel as they flew in formation. We're the Moonkeepers. Moonkeepers? Veissrugr nodded solemnly. Yes, a race that serves the Moongate. You called yourself a scout. Do you have some connection to the Moongate? As expected, it is no wonder that you were chosen as the first challenge of the gate. The rabbit-type Moonkeeper Veissrugr raised his staff. He seemed to be praising him. But that is something you should ask our master directly. I often get told that I talk way too much. The group circled the moon and was about to descend into the largest crater on the moon. Reziel recognized the particularly large figure standing at the center of the crater and realized that it was the aforementioned Master. Welcome, Reziel, the fated one of miracles. As Reziel landed, kicking up a small puff of moon sand, the words that reached him were from the person standing before him, but they clearly took the form of a thought. My name is Veissrugr, the moon's gatekeeper. And now we return to the scene that started our tale. The area around the lunar crater and the sky above it were filled with a seemingly endless horde of creatures comparable to those on Cray, though the lunar atmosphere was too thin for vibrations to be transmitted as sound. Reziel could hear the creatures' thoughts crying directed at him. Black black wings cover the sky. They gather the dawnlight and offer it to the gate. They are the Veissrugr. Phantom beasts? Veissrugr, the moon's gatekeeper, somehow reached, looking down at Rezael alongside his moonkeeper allies. The rapid type Resperuld, the female Favsnail, and the male Ramsden. Moonkeepers belong to the moon, and I am custodian of the moon's gate. And the phantom beasts are those who discern the truth that emerges from the moon gate, the bearers of trials. Rezael pondered, trying to understand what Veissrugr was saying and what it meant. So, the test is to fight here. I suppose my opponent is this pack? Rezael readied his holy sword, anticipating the growing battle. You understand quickly, Rezael. You are truly the bearer of the destined future. A healer of illnesses and wounds. You are truly at the pinnacle of the destiny on planet Cray. The Moon's Gatekeeper's thoughts convinced Rezael that Veissrugr and the other Moonkeepers knew everything about him, from his history to recent events. And as Resperuld had revealed, they were also reading his thoughts to some extent. But the mythical true beasts, Veissrugr, are no ordinary creatures. They themselves are burning with fighting spirit, wanting to test you, but your opponent is someone else. Veissrugr raised both his swords, marked with the crest of the moon gate, high into the air, beckoning. If you can hear my voice, respond. The one-eyed ancestor, the illusion that became the fang of punishment, the true beast that soars through the heavens. The phantom beasts released their encirclement, and the sky that they had been covered up opened. Rezael was drawn upward. Then his eyes widened. A swirling distortion of space had appeared in the center of the gigantic moon gate. From it, a head, a hand. Just as it seemed to emerge, it flew like a meteor across the distance from the gate to the surface of the moon, landing on the lunar surface, on a protrusion in the center of the crater. The first Mythic, Wolfsane. A roar cut through the moon's thin atmosphere, and there was an unearthly sense of power in its posture, head held high, and in the four limbs and claws gripping the rock. The first mythical beast, Wolfsane. Rezael couldn't remember a feeling of fear when he faced battle, in life or death. The first condition is not to be overwhelmed by the opponent. In other words, do not be afraid. This was one of Rezael's qualities as a natural swordsman, recognized even by his allies. The master swordmen, Varga Dragras and Idaros, despite being a doctor himself. But even Rezael was cowering, even though he didn't want to admit it, at the enemy before him. No, this enemy was different from anything he had faced before. Incomparable. That's right. The origin and pinnacle of all Mythic. Wolfsane is one of the ancestral mythical beasts. Veissrugr, the moon gatekeeper, said, reading Rezael's thoughts again. But a trial should always be a high wall for a challenger. Isn't that right? You haven't answered my question yet, gatekeeper, Rezael said. He crouched down and faced the first mythical beast with his sword held in front of him. What is the purpose of this trial? Why me? What does it mean to you? I will answer that once you have overcome the trial, fated one of miracles. And completing the trial should be something that you would also desire. However, Volsane Rotsnir leapt at Rezael. Even taking into account the moon's thin atmosphere and weak gravity, the first mythical beast's agility was unbelievable. First, you must give it your all, fated one of miracles. Volsane Rotsnir, true to its name, ran around the crater like a wild wolf. 1 hit. 2 hits. Rezael's feathers scattered. Rotsnir was on all fours. Rezael was most familiar with the quadrupeds and recalled the movements of the roaring flame beast Creole, partner of Vaga's disciple, the fiery blade Ardart. However, the Volsane Rotsnir was no match for Karel. Moreover, Rotsnir's fearsome combat instincts steadily cut through Rezael's defenses, even predicting his evasive moves. Though Rotsnir's fangs often grazed Rezael, his sword never quite struck him. At this rate, he would be defeated. Would his life end in a place like this, with the planet Cray so far in the distance? What do you fight for? What do you seek in life, King of Fates? At that moment, the voice reached his heart. It was probably that of Volsane Rotsnir. A fire flared once again in Rezael's broken heart. Remember, who was he? What had he accomplished? Even though it's just a glimmer of hope, a miracle will descend upon those who reach out their hand to receive it. Oh, Cray, and the power of destiny from another world, now come to me! A flash of light. The surface of the moon in the inside of the crater was filled with the radiance of the power of the destiny of hope. Volsane Rotsnir, who had been overwhelmingly dominating from the start of the battle, stopped in his tracks, just for a moment. Fated King of Miracles, Rezael Vita. He raised his long holy sword. That's the spirits, muttered Veissrugr, the moon's gatekeeper, and his followers, Resperold, Fredsnir, and Ramsden, looked at him in surprise. Volsane Rotsnir began sprinting again. Rotsnir circled the crater's perimeter, closing the distance to its prey in a spiral. Its agility, endurance, and intense fighting spirit and offensive power were astonishing, and his tactical eye was focused on the earthly angel Rezael, who was unfamiliar with both low gravity and thin atmosphere. The goal is a draw. He was facing a formidable foe he had never encountered before. Even if he manifested the power of the King of Fates, he was no way prepared to return unscathed. The spiral contracted. His sword had twice performed a miracle and led the world into its destined future. At the moment of impact, Rezael thrust with all his might, pierced, but the tip of his sword was narrowly avoided. You fought well. Veissrugr, the moon's gatekeeper, nodded, and his followers similarly expressed their admiration for Rezael's valiant fight. But it's still not enough. In the next moment, 6 rope-like mandibles circled behind Rezael and entangled his body. A fireball spat out by Rotsnir hit the angel doctor directly in the torso. Grah! Rezael collapsed onto the moon's surface, and the moon's sand flew up in vain. The moon's trial now comes to an end, declared Veissrugr, the moon's gatekeeper, solemnly, and the roar of the first mythical beast, Rotsnir Volsane, shook the thin air. But something was watching over the winners and losers. A huge moongate floating in the sky, and another shadow lurking at its center.